Well, I mean, it's funny that you say that because the thing is, like, I already do that now. I mean, I'm an actor and I'm a producer, and I mean, I'm an entrepreneur at heart. So one of the things that I do is before I even got in the game of acting, I was like, if I'm going to do this, and you know, they always talk about show business, and this is show business. I'm actually going to want to make sure I know the business and understand the business side of it before I even step into this, because that starving artist type thing, I don't want to deal with that. So what I did is I studied the business for like 2 years, because I met Angela Bassett and Tasha Smith, and you know, Angela Bassett gave me about an hour, 45 minutes coaching and acting, and then Tasha said to me, she puts her hand on my shoulder and said, you know, you got what it takes to be a leading man in this industry. And I'm like, at that point, I wasn't 100% sure, because I was going to different acting coaches who things, and they weren't really, you know, because there's some people that can tell you that they're a coach, but they're not really a coach. And I believe that, okay, and what I mean by that, I'm just going to explain, because anyone can say that they're a coach, but I believe that if you're a coach, and if you're a true coach, you have to be walking the walk, not just talking it, but walking it. And so my thing has always been like, I have to look at mentors who are actually the ones that are actually doing what I want to do. Not someone that's going to tell me theories, but someone that's actually walking it. So, and that's what I started looking at. And so Tasha tells me, you got to what it takes to be a leading man in this industry. You need some training though. And I said, well, you know, I don't know who to go to. I got so many people telling me that they're the truth, but you go to them and you soon quickly find out that they're not the truth. And then you've already put out a lot of cash. It's like you keep throwing your money at the wall and hoping that it stick. And I was like, you know, I don't want to do that. And then she said, okay, you need to go see Susan Batson and, you know, work with her. I was like, well, I never heard of her. Don't even know what she said. She's like, don't worry, we'll take you over. She took me to Susan's studio and said, this is where you need to come and train. You need to buy her book, Truth. So I bought the book, Truth, right there and then. And so, but in doing that, I was like, yeah, I can just go in. But, you know, my thing is I have a daughter, and I was like, I want to make sure that my daughter's taken care of first before I even make that move. And, you know, I had to have a conversation with my daughter and say, hey, you know, try to see if she, you know, I think I can get her to move to New York, because I'm not with her mother. So we got some, you know, we got to deal with all that. So it took me 2 years to study the business and make sure that all that was set, and then move to New York to finally attend the Susan Batson studio and start working on the craft. Because the business side, during that 2 years, I said, I can't study the craft yet over there, but for this 2 years, I can study the business side of it and just learn as much as I can about the business. And when I head to New York and I moved to New York, I had a theory of what, you know, how the business was operating. And then I had to actually then walk and test the theory and see that, you know, make sure that it works before I can say, oh, I can share with someone. Because I said, hey, if I'm going to go ahead and be an artist, and I know that as an artist, it takes you, especially when it comes to acting. I mean, Denzel's a 20-year, you know, success. It took him 20 years to get there. There's a lot of actors that are like that, especially actors of color. And it's not just actors of color, but, you know, a lot of them come in the game and you see him, and, you know, he's been doing his thing for 20 years. You see that, and a lot of people don't know that. They just see them doing that thing on a movie or on a show, and they're like, oh, you know, I want to do that, but they don't understand it. It takes that much commitment. You're going to get so many no's.
Commitment is a key word. It's an operative word, because it allows you to continue on in a way where there isn't any distractions or anything that's going against what you truly believe. And that's extremely hard to do when people have commitment in their head, but then there's outside variables that changes the dynamics of how they want to move about with their commitment. So it's real interesting that that is something that you mentioned, and it's extremely important, because you can be thrown off kilter by all types of people, but it's up to you to stay committed.
I'm glad that you said it, because I'll put it this way. I thought I was committed, and I was like, hey, I'm at the studio and I'm spending 40, 50 hours a week on the craft, because I said, hey, you know what? I know it's 10,000 hours to bang 10,000 hours out. And so you can become a professional. And I said 10,000 hours, that's roughly about 5 years. I was banging out at least 50 hours a week or more. There was nights that, you know, I'm at the studio, because the studio, what was great about the studio is that we would start 5 in the afternoon and we'll go until about 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning. And then you go home, take a 2-hour nap, and come back for a 9 o'clock class. In doing that, that's one aspect of it. And there's a dilemma in that, because there's a problem where you have to say, hey, how do I make money?
Oh, that's right. That's a big part of someone that's really committed and passionate,
Exactly.
but do not have the support system where the money can come in right away. So I know exactly what you're saying. And this is a big help to many of the people that will love to follow some of your footsteps or just to get into that industry. So these are key components as to how you should view certain aspects of the industry.
And that aspect of that, when that, I kind of solved that from the beginning, because during that 2 years, I said, you know what, in looking at the business, studying the business, I said, hey, you know what, I need to make sure that I'm able, when I get there, maintain, I can focus 100% of my time on the craft. So I was making sure I was stacking up while I was getting ready, making the sacrifices for 2 years to make sure that when I get there, I was going to go ahead and just keep going strong without having to look back. But that's only sustainable for a certain amount of time. Now, so the thing is, like, I then started saying one of the ways to make money is making money online. So figuring out how to make money online, so that way, while I was in class, sometimes I'm on my phone, and the coach is like, "Yo, what are you doing? You can't be on your phone when you're in class." And I'm like, "Well, it's how I'm making my money, so I gotta make my money." And so I solved that in one aspect. Now you're not only being an actor, but you're also working on a business also. So how do you balance all of this? But that's one of the things that people have to take into consideration before they even step into this. Because like I said, I thought I was 100% committed. My first week there, I didn't sleep for 3 days.
Oh, no.
And on day 4, it was a Wednesday night. I had gone home. It was like maybe around 3 a.m., something like that. I left because I was like, I'm going to leave class early because I'm a little tired. So I'm going to take a nap or whatever. I get home. I slept, and I didn't wake up until Friday afternoon because I hadn't slept. And I normally get 4 hours, and that comes from a training of being in the Tony Robbins environment, because I've been part of his environment for many years. And when I go to his environment, we'd be there for a week, and in that week that you're there, or maybe you're there for 10 days, like in December 2nd to I think the 11th or 12th, we're there, and we're at his environment. We only get about 4 hours of sleep each night. So in doing that, I kind of trained myself to do that. And I've been doing that since I was probably like 19, 20. It was something that I was like, oh yeah, you can normally do it. But then going 3 days without really having any sleep, just maybe an hour nap here and there, and it's like, boom, you crash. And then I was like, well, I got to figure this out. Then I had to figure out how to balance that out.
That's interesting that you're saying that, because with commitment, you do have to sacrifice. So whether that means sacrifice of sleep, whether it means sacrifice of spending less time with your loved ones or what have you, there's something about, again, that keyword that you used earlier, being committed to the craft. So it takes a lot for someone to just stay on track with that.
And you also have to look at the level of commitment. Because people can say that they committed. Like I said, I thought I was committed, but I wasn't getting the results. And part of it, especially with acting, and I think this is probably can relate to anything in life, is that you can put in as much hours. Because one thing is, like, I was coaching a guy not too long ago in acting. And he came to me because he said he wanted to grow a little faster in business. I said, well, how long have you been acting? He said 15 years. So I said, well, 15 years, shoot, I probably don't have much to share with you, because if you've been in the game 15 years, then you really know what you're doing. At least I would hallucinate that you know what you're doing. And then he hadn't done anything. And he was like, how can you be in the game for 15 years and haven't really done anything? And then I said, well, would it be fair to say that you've been living the same year over and over again for 15 years?
Wow.
And he said, yeah, you know what? That's basically what I've done. For the last 15 years, I've been doing the same thing and never really progressing. And
I have a friend that has a good comment, a quote about that. Michael Greenberg from ESPN. He's part of the Get Up in the Morning show, something that entails like the updates for ESPN sports. And he would always say, Hopi, if you do the same thing over and over without any true results or new results, then it's insanity.
yeah, definitely. Yes, they definitely say that. I think it was I want to say Einstein that said that. I'm not sure if it was Einstein, but I believe it was Einstein that said that.
Wow. Here I am calling Michael Greenberg the author of it.
No, it's Einstein that defined insanity as doing something over and over again, expecting a different result.
That's awesome.
So I had to look at the level of commitment, because one day I had done something on stage, and I was always getting, that was dog shit. If you really, really want to do this, you have to take into consideration that people are going to tell you suck. And you can look at it, it's all how you perceive it. You can say, hey, you know what? I suck, and you quit. or you could say, you know what can I do better, and try to do something better and different so you can grow, because you're going to keep hearing that, you're going to have to grow. Some people don't like criticism, and
Criticism in general.
yeah, whether it's constructive or not. The first time I did something, I had, one of the coaches tell me that was dog shit. And I'm like, I didn't even know what dog shit meant, because I don't have a dog. I had a cat. But you saying something that's dog shit. And I'm like, I felt that I got insulted, but didn't know what it meant. And I'm like, he just insulted me. And he did in a way, but I could have taken it as an insult. I could say, okay, you know what do I need to do to grow?
There you
And
go. That's great. That's right. I'm happy you took that as the constructive criticism and then decided to elevate and do things differently so that you can become that driving force necessary to stay on top of that commitment, that vision that you initially had. Because that person and his choice of words could have changed the whole trajectory of what you wanted to do. But again, some kind of way you had an innate feeling that you were onto something, whether it meant to modify it just a little so that it can be something, to bring you into a future fruition.
well, I look at it this way. All of it starts with your psychology. I've been fortunate enough to be in the Tony Robbins environment, so I knew that, okay, I have to stand guards in the doorways of my mind. So if he's going to throw this at me, I can take it and let it defeat me, or I can take it and flip it and see how I can look at it, give it an empowering meaning.
That's right. Wow. That's
Because
awesome.
nothing has meaning until you give it meaning. So
That's right.
once you give it the meaning, then it can affect you. But you give it that meaning, you need to look at, how can I use this to empower me? After, I'd say a couple of years of me being there and me working, and one day I did something, and then he jumped up, like, yeah, that's it. And then, after class, he was like, "You thought I gave up on you, huh?" I said, "I
Oh,
thought you gave up. I thought you gave up a long time ago."
look
And
at
then
that.
yeah, and then he said, "Nah." He said, "You know what? When you first came here, I didn't like your acting. I totally understand what he means today, because when I see actors do something that's bad, it just does something to me. It puts this pain in my heart, like you're destroying the art."
I understand. It's just like me as a celebrity makeup artist, and then people are like drawing on their eyebrows, and I'm just like, no, that's not the right. You're kidding me. That's not the
Yeah.
right way.
and and it's painful. So I understand the pain that I was giving him, and he took it out. He just lashed out on me, whatever. But when he said that to me, I said, "I thought you gave up a long time ago." He said, "You know what?" He's like, "I didn't like your acting, but there was one thing about you that I couldn't let go. No matter how much I treated you bad, no matter how much I beat you and cut you down, you came back the next day and you stood on that stage and did it over again." He's like, "I had no choice but to respect you." And
Oh wow, that's awesome.
yeah, and it was beautiful to have him say that to me. And I was like, "Oh,
Right.
okay, yeah, I get it." You know what I'm saying? And the thing is like, having the tenacity to just get up on stage every day and say, "Suck." And a lot of people, and they tell me, "Oh, I love your acting. You did so good," and this and that. And they're like, "Yo, how did you get there?" I'm like, "I just failed forward.
Mhm.
Every single day I got on that stage and failed, and realized that, you know what, I have to be comfortable with failure. Failure is a stepping stone to success." So I'm like, you know what, it's not easy to do. I can sit here and tell you it's not easy to do at all, to have someone, because there were days that, I get on, classes in Manhattan. I live in Brooklyn. I get on that train. It's a 45-minute ride home, and I'm beating myself up, and I'm fighting. I'm trying to talk to myself, after talk to myself by the time I get out the train, so I can just make a radical shift in my physiology and go out and be like, okay, you know what? Tomorrow's a new day. And there's days that it's hard. You go to bed feeling that way. But what happens is, especially for most men, especially for me, I grew up in an area in Boston, which, towards the Roxbury. I grew up in that area, and it's a tough area. You've seen a lot of stuff. It's like you start to numb yourself and you close yourself out, and then you say, "I want to be an actor."
Mhm.
And to be an actor, you got to be open. You got to be able to feel. You can't protect yourself. And what I knew was, I got to protect myself. So it was a hard shell to crack. And I look at it, what he did, the way he treated me, it was a way for him to break through that shell and crack it. It's like, I remember the first time that I actually had a feeling. I'm like, oh shit, I'm feeling something. Because I always knew that I didn't feel nothing. And it was beautiful to actually, today I'm like, yeah, I love the fact that I can feel, and I can connect with somebody, and I can feel what they're going through without them even saying anything, just looking at their physiology. And that's from years of actually beating on the craft, making sure that my instrument is open so I can feel. And what I went through with him, I'm like, it's cool. I'm really cool with him today. And I love the fact that he did that, because if he hadn't done that, I wouldn't have broke. And what I mean by broke is the shell wouldn't have cracked.
You had an epiphany, some kind of way, despite where his perception was, you used that to your advantage. And that's what matters the most when you want to pursue something that doesn't make sense to someone else on the left or right of you. But in your mind, you want to continue on and commit. Remember that key word you used earlier, commit. When you do that, there's something about being able to just modify things ever so slightly. And this is me just summing everything up that you mentioned in so many ways. You're able to stay focused and then take criticism as one of your best tools. So this is what I'm understanding for a person that would like to get into your type of field as an actor and do things that can sustain longevity in that type of field too. Because I can only understand that there's people that come and go as actors. I'm sure you probably have so many casting calls where you see the same people. And then that changes things too, where you're thinking, all right, well, this is my competition, or you build your own competition in your head. And that in its own right can build you too, to help with your own type of self-esteem. Any advice that you would give to people that would want to start off with casting calls or just to put their foot in the door? And I'm not speaking directly for you. So if anything I said earlier is in your point of view, please do correct me. I don't mind.
Well, I would say this, that the way I look at it, and first off, the way I look at it, no one's competition, because no one's you. You're uniquely you. So everyone, I was just watching a documentary on Al Pacino. A friend of mine worked on the documentary. It hasn't come out yet, but she sent me the link and said, "Hey, watch this documentary. I worked on it. You got to watch it." And I was like, "What is she?" Because I'm like, I don't really want to watch some documentary, but I didn't know it was Al Pacino. Then I started watching. I was like, "Oh, it's Al Pacino. Okay." And I now understood why she sent it to me. I was like, and then I was watching the story. And it was Al Pacino had, I forget the name of the movie that he was in, but it was a movie that he plays a drug addict. And it was between him and Robert De Niro. And Robert De Niro, the director's talking about how he had saw Robert De Niro, and then he saw Al Pacino. And for him, Al Pacino was the character. But Robert De Niro really wanted the part. So Robert De Niro saw him one day, he was window shopping, and he heard a voice behind him, like, "Hey, I really want to play that role." And then he turned around and he said, it's Robert De Niro. And then he's like, you don't know what to say to Robert De Niro. So then all of a sudden he tells the truth. He's like, well, for me, Al is the character. And then he said, Robert De Niro just looked at him, turned around and walked away. And I share that because I'm saying it's like, you show up who you are. And if the role's for you, you're going to get it. People are going to see, I'm the lead in Convicted. When the director I spoke to the director after we've done the movie, and the movie's on Amazon Prime and everything. And I was speaking to the director. He's like, yeah, for me, he's like, the minute I saw you, I saw your headshot. I was like, yo, he's the character. He looks like the character. So when they had me come in, I came in, and he's like, he walked in as the character. Because when I walked in, to be honest with you, I never even shared it with the director. Like, I didn't want the role, And the reason why I didn't want the role is, I didn't want the role because I grew up in the hood. So it's like, I don't want to depict that and tell that story because of the fact that I look at it this way. That is putting our people down, and we got to look at the image that we put in the young kid's head. Because if a child's going to see that, whether they're 14, 15, and I know they will see it because when I was at that age, I was watching movies. Like I watched The Godfather, I watched Scarface, I watched all of those movies. And I didn't want to depict that story. I didn't want to tell that story.
Perpetuate. You didn't want to perpetuate it. I understand. I see exactly where you're going with that.
Exactly.
You have to choose which kind of roles you want to really convey so that you can stay aligned with your own core beliefs, and then those as a I don't know, an ethnic group or a community, a nation, a community. I get what you're saying, and that's great.
And I looked at it because when I first came to New York, all they wanted to give me was either the detective, which I'm like, all right, that's cool. They want to make me play a cop. You look like a cop. I'm like, how do I look like a cop? But I'm like, okay, whatever. I don't know what a cop look like, I guess.
What does a cop look like?
That's what I was like. But and then they wanted to give me the drug dealer. It was a cop of the drug dealer.
Interesting.
It was nothing else. I can't play a doctor. I can play a lawyer. It's a cop of the drug dealer. And I'm like, so I'm getting pissed at this.
Is that called typecasting?
That's if you're playing the same role and you do it so well, and then they see that, like, oh, boom, and then they start just giving you that role, and then it makes it harder for you to break out of that role. So when that happened, I was getting upset at that. I was like, I don't want this. So when I got offered to come and do this audition for this movie, I said, okay, you know what? I talked to Susan's son, Carl, and I'm like, hey, you know what? They want me to audition for this movie. I really don't want to audition for this movie. And he's like, why don't you want to audition for a movie? You're an actor. You want to act, don't you? I was like, yeah, I want to act. The character is a sociopath. He's killing people and he's
Oh,
selling drugs, and I don't want to do that. He looked at me and said, hey, you know what? Who gives a fuck? He's like, go out there and just audition, fuck it up then. You know what I'm saying? He's like, because he's looking at me like, what do you want me to tell you? He's like, go out there and fuck it up. You know, fuck up the audition. He said, why do you want to do it? I was like, well, I want to keep the relationship with the producer. You know,
okay.
she does a lot of movies, and I want to do other movies with her. So I want to keep a relationship with her. So she seems like a good person to stay connected with. So he's like, go out there, fuck it up. And then I was like, all right, cool. And then, so the audition was like about 6 blocks from the studio. So I'm walking to the audition, and in my head, I'm saying, fuck this audition. I don't want to do it. Why do I got to do this shit? And so why do I got to do all this stuff? And I'm getting through all that. So when I get there, the minute I get there, she's saying, hey, we've been waiting for you. And, you know, there's other actors sitting there. And I'm like, well, they were here before me. I'm not even going to get a chance to drop. Because I'm like, if I'm going to go ahead and do this, I have to make sure that it's a part of me that if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it right. You know what I'm saying? Or I'm going to do my best with it.
That's right.
And so she said, just come on in. We've been waiting for you. Just walk in. And I'm like, okay. So I walk in there. So as I'm walking in, I'm already walking in with that attitude. I walk. It's like, yeah, direct to me. Hey, nice to meet you. Like, hey, what's up? Nice to meet you. And then he's like, yeah, you ready to do this? I'm like, yeah, whatever. Let's do this. And so that's why they said I walked in as a character, because I'm coming in. I'm like, yeah, whatever. I don't give a fuck. Let's go ahead and do this. And we did the scene. And he's like, yeah, you know what? He's like, oh, that was good.
Look at that.
He goes like this to me. Well, you've had like 2 days with that script. So here's this side right here. We're gonna see you. You're gonna do this. I'm gonna give you a minute to read this, and then once you read it, we'll go into it. Okay? I said, okay, all right. So about 30 seconds of me reading it, he goes, you ready? I'm like, yeah, I guess whatever, man. Let's go. And then he's like, you know what's happening? I was like, yeah, you set me up. And he's like, well, your character don't know that. I was like, yeah, I know my character don't know that. Let's go ahead. And then we did it. And then I was like, all right, cool. And walked out, gave the producer a hug and walked out and left. The next day she called me up and said, hey, we wanted a strong actor to play this role. You showed up as the character. I mean, we really want you to do this. The director was totally impressed with you. And I'm like, I'm looking at the phone. And now at this point, I've only been studying for a year. You know, at the Susan Bassett studio. You know, I hadn't been studying for long. So I'm looking at, I'm like, okay, you know what? Because I'm at the studio, I'm getting told every day, you suck. That's dog shit. So I'm like, what? So, you know, my mind's all wrapped up, like, you know, what's going on?
So do you find that when you were yourself, like when you just walked in as yourself without having any inhibitions, you just figure, I'll just go, do what I do, mess it up, and, you know, just let caution take the win, if you will. Is that when you found that they saw you as the ultimate actor for that role, despite seeing the tear sheet or the headshots or what have you? They saw something more when they saw your presence in the room?
I think it's definitely, you have to show up authentically as yourself. And what most people do when they go to an audition, especially when they're new, they are nervous. They want to get it right. They want to do it right. And I'll tell you right now, in this field, this industry, acting, you never want to get it right. Getting it right is messing up. Because when you get it right, you're going to guarantee that you don't get the part, because they want to see something that they don't expect. So if you show up authentically as yourself, then, you know, they're going to see something that they didn't expect, because you're a person that they don't know, and they're going to see that. And for me, what I say with that is that you have to, we talk about truth a lot when it comes to acting. Like any actor you talk to that's been in the game for a long time and they connected with the instrument, they're congruent with their instrument. What happens is that they're always talking and telling the truth. They never, you know, because to tell the truth, I mean, to lie, you're going against your artist, your actor. So you have to tell the truth, because in telling the truth, then you stay open. If you don't tell the truth, you're not going to be open. So, I mean, I'll give you another example. I went to an audition, and I just did this movie not too long ago. And when I went to the audition, again, they sent me the stuff, but I was like, oh, you know what? You know, the producer called me up and said, hey, I got this movie, and it's on Alexander Pushkin, who was a Black Russian. And I was like, they have Black Russians? And he's like, yeah, he was a Black Russian, and, you know, he was a poet. And he was like, when they go to school in Russia, they have to learn his poems. I'm like, oh, this is cool. You know, I'm like, yeah, I want to know more about this guy. So I'm like, yeah. So he's like, yeah, I want you to come in. Yeah, I was like, he wants you to come in. He's like, I want you to come in and audition. I was like, okay, great. He gave me, he sent me, I was like, send me the script or send me the sides, whatever, and I'll go in with the location and time and everything. I was like, all right. And he sent it to me, and I was reading it. I was like, okay, cool. And, you know, it was a scene where he's dying, and the character's dying, and I'm like, okay, he's just had a gun battle, and he got he got shot, and so he's gonna die. And so I'm like, okay, cool. And I'm reading this, and I'm like, I didn't like the language because it takes place, I think, in the 1500s, something like that.
Okay.
So I'm looking at the language, and I didn't really like the language. It's Old English type way in a way.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
but it
Cool.
was a Shakespearean. Yeah. So I'm looking at it. I'm like, I can't really connect with this. So but then I just put it away. The audition was 2 days away, so I put it away, and then I had the same. Well, the day before the audition, I had 4 auditions. So I was doing these 4 auditions. I was working on those scripts because those had to go first, and then I didn't get to work on the other scripts. So I walk in, and I show up early because I always show up early. And as soon as I show up early, I call up, and the director was there, and she answers, and she's like, "Wait a minute." She's like, "You're too early. You gotta." And I'm like, usually, as an actor, you want to get there early so you can get a sense of the environment,
Wow.
get settled
This is
in.
great advice.
And
Mhm.
yeah, so I go in, and she's like, "No, go have coffee or something and come back." And I'm like, "Okay." And she's eccentric. She's an artist. So I'm like, "Okay." I'm like, this is kind of strange, but okay. So I left, and but when I left, I met a couple of actors outside, and they had the same amount of time as me, and we started talking within 15 minutes. So I never even went out. We just stayed outside and talked. And then me and another actor, I was like, "What time?" He said 11. I was like, "Mine's 11 too." He was like, "Well, let's go up." So we went up. And as soon as we got there, she's like, "Wait a minute, it can't be 2 of you. It's only one person has 11 o'clock. Everyone has." And I was like, "Well, I got an email said 11. He said, I got an email said 11. We both showed our email. And then she's like, "Okay, wait, let me check my list." And she checked her list. And then she's like, "Okay." So then she looks at me. She said, "Do you know the script?" I was like, "What do you mean?" She's like, "Do you know your lines?" I was like, "No." She's like, "Have you read the script?" I said, "No." And she's like, "How can you come in an audition without reading the script?" And because for me, I'm like, you know what? The only thing I can rely on is being truthful and holding on to the truth.
Yeah.
And I walked out. And because she said, "Walk out," and saying, "Go out there, look at the script, and then come back." How can you do that? How can you even come to an audition? We sent you an audition. It's like you were chosen, and you're not gonna respect it. I walked out, and that's how our relationship started. I go out,
Wow. Wow.
and so I go out, and this is me showing up authentically as myself. Every time that I've gotten a role, is me showing up authentically as myself. If
Look
I
at
show
that.
up trying to do the character, trying to do it a certain way, it never happens.
Wow. That's interesting.
Yeah, so I was like, I go out there and I look at the script and I read the script, and then the producer comes and I see him. I was like, "Yo, what's going on with her?" He's like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Oh, she's a little eccentric. So don't worry about it. Just go in and do the audition. You're good." Right? I'm like, "All right, cool." So the other guy comes out that was auditioning, and I mean, by talking to him, I knew that he didn't have the training, so I knew he wasn't going to get the role. So I wasn't worried about him, but I wasn't worried. Period. So she comes out with him and said, "You know what? I don't know why they called you. You're not right for this role," and just told him right then and then. I'm like, wow, I could see him getting crushed.
So it's
But
a matter of fact. They can give you constructive criticism, and then they can just give you criticism, and then it's up to
yeah,
you to take that information and
mhm.
do something productive.
That doesn't happen with everyone. You know what I'm saying? You don't really get that. Sometimes you say thank you, bye, and that's it. And you don't know what even if they were feeling you or not. You know what I'm saying? But she told him right there and then, you don't have it. So I walk in, and she goes like this to me. She's like, "All right, how long have you been acting?" And I told her, and she's like, "Okay, well, let's see what you can do." So I was like, "All right, cool." So they gave the reader the script, and he's going to read with me. And I had looked at the lines briefly, but I kept the sides with me. You keep the sides with you if you don't know the lines, so you can dip down, look at the lines, and deliver it. But this is a scene; it's a death scene, so you got to be in the scene. You can't just be trying to break and look at the lines and go. So, and I did it. So she was like, "That was better than the guy that was just in here." Okay. And then she's like, "I want you to do it again." So she gave me an adjustment, and I did it. And then after I did it, she's like, "Okay, I'm feeling you," which I'm like, "Oh, that's great that she's feeling you." I'm saying that she's feeling the emotions I'm going through. And then she goes like this, but the way that you're doing it for TV and film. I want you to do it for me
Okay.
right now, like you're on stage. I want to be across the room and be able to feel you. That's how powerful I want this to be when you do this. I said, "Okay." So she went to the back wall. It wasn't that far, but she went to the back wall and said, "I'm gonna be right here, and I want you to do it, and I want to be able to feel you from right here." I said, "Okay." And so when the reader read it, now I'm going to the third time to read it. Now I already know the words completely. There's no second guessing the words, and I just dropped into the deepest and boom, and did it. And the camera after, he's like, wow, it's like, that was powerful. And then the video was like, yeah, man, that was great. And then she's like, I love this guy. And now she wants to take a picture with me. Let me take your picture. She gave me a call back. And then, yeah, so I got a call back. The call back was a month later. And then when I went for the call back, she had another guy. So it was between me and this other guy. And and when I saw the other guy, I realized exactly why the other guy got the role. Because when I look at the picture from, when I Googled the character and I looked at the picture, this guy looked exactly like the character. So I was like, wow, that's exactly why he got the role. Because even though Alexander Pushkin was black, he was light skinned, and so I'm brown skinned, so it didn't work out, and he was a bigger guy, bigger than me, and the guy was bigger than me. So I was like, okay, I understand, he fits the character, but I got to be the grandfather when the grandfather was young, because what happens is Alexander Pushkin, his grandfather was kidnapped, brought to Istanbul, and he helped over there. He helped the royalty over there to make sure that they would stay in power. So after they did that, he was given to the Russians as a gift because of what he had done. But the king in Russia, whoever the ruler was in Russia, he believed that Black people weren't just these Neanderthals or whatever, these animals. That he believed that if we put them in the schools with our people, they will learn and they will grow up to be the same way. And so that's what he did. He took Alexander's grandfather, and his name is Gannibal, and they put Gannibal in school, and he went to school, learned military work, and then he became a general for them, and he was very strategic and won a lot of wars for them. He even went to France to study in France, and while he was in France, he joined the army in France and helped them fight. That's how he got the name Gannibal, because they compared him to Hannibal, but they called him Gannibal.
It sounds like the role was meant for you then, despite you
Yeah,
wanting to have the other role. This was more of a closer depiction of how you would want to portray that particular character, because you
definitely.
have to bring it to life. And because you understand that backstory, because you understand how pivotal his part was within that whole production, that made you want to be more involved within that whole character itself. And that's interesting how you
Yeah.
have to turn things around despite not getting the role that you initially wanted.
Well, what intrigued me about the whole thing is like it was a period piece, and I'm like, as an actor, I'm like, this is beautiful to be able to play a period piece and go in and do that. I'm like, this is amazing. As an actor, I want to do that. I don't want to be doing drug dealers and gangs. And in my perspective, is like I said, it's all about perspective. My perspective on that changed one day when I was talking to a friend of mine who's also an actor, and he's been on a ton of stuff. And I was telling him, hey, you know what? I hate when I go in, or when they look at me, they want to give me the drug dealer or the cop, whatever. Usually they're giving me more the drug dealer, like a drug dealer. I've never sold drugs. And he goes like this. Let me ask you a question. He's like, you like to show power? I said, yeah, I love power. He's like, do you think any of those guys in there are drug dealers? I'm like, of course. I mean, they're not drug dealers. They're actors. Like, yeah, but do you think any of them look like drug dealers? I was like, nah, they don't really like it. But he's like, but you love the show, right? They tell a good story, right? He's like, that's all you're doing. You're telling us the story. And I was like, yeah, I get that. It's just, again, like, I don't want to depict that, I'm saying, to the youth. But I was like, I love the show. So if I did get that role, I would do it. What made me do Convicted was the fact that after I got the role, I come back to Carl, who's Susan's son, and I said, Carl, he looked at me, he's like, what's up? Because you could see my physiology, you could tell. I said, man, I told you I didn't want the role. You told me to audition, and they gave me the role. Now what do I do? And he starts laughing. He's like, what do you mean? And it's a quality problem. You know what I'm saying? It's a quality problem because I want to act.
Yeah.
Yes, it's a great problem to have. So, I said, well, I already told you I don't want to do those type of characters. And then he looked at me and said, yeah, but you grew up in a hood, didn't you? I was like, yeah. He's like, so guys like this character, don't you? I was like, yeah. He's like I had a lot of friends that, were like this character. And he said, then tell their story. Bring humanity to their story.
Wow.
So I was like, wow. I was like, so he challenged me to do that. I said, being a masculine male, you challenged me. I'm like, I'm gonna go ahead and do it. So I ended up doing the character and bringing some humanity to the character. And I don't want to give it away, but when you watch the movie,
Oh yeah.
I went to the premiere. The only people that knew me in the premiere was just friends of mine that had gone with me. No one else knew me. No one else had seen the movie or whatever. So, and the people that worked on the project, they knew who I was. So I'm sitting there, and throughout the whole time, I'm looking down. I'm looking
You're being humble.
So the story's not taking me. Yeah, the story's not taking me anywhere, but I'm looking and I'm like, oh man, I could have done this. And so I'm looking and so after that's done, they call me on stage. And then after, as soon as I got off stage or whatever, it was like everybody wanted to take pictures and stuff like that with me. And I'm like, I freaked out because I was claustrophobic as a kid. And, I tried to run out of there as quickly as possible. And
Oh,
which I did. And then, but right when I was getting ready to leave out the door, this woman comes up to me and grabbed me by my arm. And so I turn around and she's like, hey, can I give you a hug? And I was like, okay. She gave me a hug and she's like, I just want to, when your character at that moment, this is a moment that the character kind of has a breakdown. It's like when your character broke down at that moment, I truly understood. I saw him as a human being at that point.
oh, you
She
touched
was like,
her.
yeah. And which was beautiful because I mean, that's what I had hoped to convey, some humanity. Like, because, I have friends that are doing life in jail. They're never coming back home. But it's not like, because they made one mistake, and yes, they have to pay for that mistake. But the thing is, like, I'm like, I knew them. They weren't just this guy who was, committing murder and doing this, and like the character, he's committing murders, he's selling drugs, he's very narcissistic and he's a sociopath. But at the same point, is like there's a human inside of there. There's something that caused him to be that way.
That's
And
right.
in doing that, I brought some humanity to it. Saying just, she confirmed that I brought some humanity to it. And I was like, wow, that was beautiful that they would touch it, and she was able to look at the character from a different perspective. And I was like, so at least with that, I have done what I set out to do, was to bring humanity to guys like that. When someone watches this film later on, when they see someone, in the news or anything accused of that, they can look at them from a different perspective and not
That's
say, hey,
right.
and
And just like right now, I need to just say this right now. You are actually sharing your current state of consciousness with those who are interested in becoming actors and actresses. And whoever is supposed to see this video will definitely be able to look at things in a different but broader perspective. And you're encouraging them in so many different ways because of how authentic you have been during this whole interview, if you will. So I think there's something that really stands really firm in a belief system of knowing that you're confident uh, as to who you are. So I think with you just, sharing that example of someone stopping you to say, hey, you don't know the impact that you've had on the stage or in this movie uh, in your own mind, but for that particular person, they knew that it changed how they thought of something. So perception is really key. And I just love how you conveyed how it's always up to that person to do something different with the information that's given to them.
definitely, definitely. And so, I mean, I share all of that because I'm saying, if you want to get into this business,
Mhm.
you have, there's a couple of things that you have to basically do a check, because one, you have to know who you are. You have to know what your purpose is in life. Because some people, I'll look at it this way. If you want to get into this business because you want the fame and the money, forget about it. It's not for you. You have to be in this business because, for me right now, like I have Lopes Brothers Production with my brothers. We created this company. And our thing is, we want to tell compelling stories that inspire the underdog. And
Awesome.
I mean, that's what I've always wanted to do. So that's the stories that we're going to be telling. And our first story that we actually, I mean, this is not our first story, but our first story as a production company is going to be it's called Erased. And if you go to erasedmovie.com, you can actually read about it. But it's about four women who go on the wrong side of the tracks, and they've been doing things. They've developed skills that they're very masterful at, these skills that they do. But the skills, it's like stealing, doing different things. So you have these things that they're doing, and they're using it in a negative way, and then they end up getting recruited by the government to have them go after a terrorist cell. And they have to infiltrate this terrorist cell. And the thing is, when we came up with this story, it was like about, not only because we wanted, I mean, I looked at it and saying, I have a daughter, so I'm like, I want her to see powerful women on screen, so it inspires her. And in doing that, I was like, cool. So we tell this story, these four women who were doing things that were not the greatest, but then they turn around at the end, towards the end of the story, they become the hero in the story. And so it's about showing you how you can flip who you are. Your current state of mind or your current circumstance is not who you are. It's not where you're going to end up. And it's about making sure that you can actually go through that and transform into where you want to be or where you see yourself. Because first you have to have a vision. And if you have that vision of who you are and what you want to be, you don't let no one ever tells you can't do it. I mean, like I said, I was on stage and tell me that's dog shit, you suck and all this. And it's like, I would get pissed, break down and everything. But I was like, if I keep doing this, it's one quote that kept after, because I studied Denzel Washington, because I actually have a one-man show on Denzel Washington.
Oh, wow, look at that. That's fantastic. Okay.
Yeah, so he was a character I had to study. So one quote from him that he says, at first when I heard the quote, I was like, it don't make any sense. But he said, if you stay in the barbershop long enough, sooner or later, you're going to get a haircut. And,
Oh,
and I'm like,
I understand. I
yeah,
get it.
yeah. I was like, I didn't get it. I was like, what the hell? He talking about barbershop getting a haircut. What are you talking about? And, but I understood after a while, I understood what he meant is like, so if you stay within any industry, whatever it is, you stay there long enough, sooner or later, you're going to achieve success.
That's
I mean,
right.
look at Samuel Jackson. I think it was 35 years for Samuel Jackson before he got his first break.
Oh, I had no idea about that. Wow.
Can you imagine going 35 years before you get your first break as an
Yeah.
actor?
That could seem a little tough. It can seem pretty tough when all that you want to do is commit.
That's commitment. That's
Yeah,
commitment.
yeah.
You know, 35 years of going through all these trials and tribulations, saying, becoming a drug addict and all of that, going through that, and still sticking with it, and then getting his first break that ends up putting him where he is in his life now. It's amazing. All of that stuff helped him to build what he has now. But 35 years, how many people would say they would go 35 years to actually get that success?
Without giving up and just saying, forget about it, I'm done. So it says a lot about that. Let me ask you something. You mentioned commitment. You gave us a wide array, a plethora of different things to consider when getting into the acting field. If you were to sum everything up into one nutshell, and I suppose you've done it in your own way, but I want you to just say two key components that would allow someone to really start off. Now, because I don't know much about the acting business except for what you're already sharing with me and some of our viewers, what I would like for you to do is tell us a specific website, or if there's a type of way to start out. Do you have to work on your memory? Do you have to write down your your scripts and then try to say it in the mirror? How does that work when people truly want to begin? Because I have a sister who's an actress, and she's doing things on the side as well as working. And some people just don't know, those. You're a network. People don't know where to begin with a lot of different things. So this is extremely helpful. So two good key components.
All right, two good. That you're challenging me now, because it's like that's kind of.
You said a million wonderful things, but now I just want to condense it for those who, today's day and age, people are paying attention as long as some would like to. So,
I will tell you this. I've already given you one. Everything that I just talked about is one thing: mindset. You have to have the right mindset, and I call it the actor's mindset. So if you have the actor's mindset, all the things that I just talked to you about is gonna keep you on track. If you don't have the right mindset, the right psychology, you're not going anywhere. And then so once you have that, when the right psychology equals you knowing who you are, it equals you being able to stay committed to your decisions and having follow through. And so then the next thing that you have to look at is you have to look at the business side of the craft if you want to be successful in this. Because one of the mistakes that I see a lot of actors do is they focus on the craft. They say, if I'm just good enough, and there's that quote, you got to be, I think it's Steve Martin's quote that he talks about, be so good that they can't ignore you. And that's great. It's great to be able to be so good that they can't ignore you, but they have to see you. They have to know that you're there.
Oh, that was profound.
Yeah. And in order for them to see you and know that you're there, you have to know the business side of the craft. So, and then the craft. So you asked me for a website and things. So those are two things. One is mindset. The other thing is knowing the business side of the craft. And then you have to obviously practice your craft. So there's three things that I can give you that. And then, but if you want a website that you can go through, every actor, the minute you come in, you start acting, you know that the first two, I mean, I knew this before, maybe 5 years before I even actually started stepping into acting. I knew that there was two websites I needed to be on. Some people tell you three, but it's really just two. The one that I don't consider is Backstage. A lot of people say, oh, Backstage. And Backstage is great if you're starting off, because you're going to find a lot of student work on there. And the work that you can find on there is you can do those, and then you'll get a copy of the footage, so you can use it for your reel and so on. So it's great when you're building your reel and you're starting off. It's great for that. But to be truly consider yourself a professional actor, you have to be on actorsaccess.com. And once you set up on Actors Access, because whenever you get an agent or a manager, the first thing they're going to ask you, are you on Actors Access?
There we go. This is good info. Yeah. Awesome, because you're giving a lot of great information. And I think that's another key component for those who want to use the social media or just the internet space as well. So that's great.
And all of that is the social media and internet, all of that comes into the business side of it. So once you know Actors Access, you go, when you create a profile on Actors Access, you have to make sure you have your headshot. And you have to make sure that your headshot makes you pop. And there's a way to do that. I mean, I don't want to go into all that because we're going to be here all night. But so you got that. And then you got to make sure that you have your reel, because in order for you to pop up and hit the first 3 pages or so on, because you got to look at it from a casting director's perspective. I'm a casting director. I'm about to cast a movie. I'm not looking at 100 people for one role. I want to look at 20 or 30 at the most, if that, because what I want to do is I have my key people that I know can deliver, and those are the people I'm going to call in. Other than that, I'm not calling anybody in. So you can't get mad if a casting director don't call you in. So what happens is, in order for you to pop up on the first 3 pages, you want to make sure you have your headshot, make sure you have your reel, and you make sure you have what's called a slate shot, and which is like 3 seconds of you saying hi, and they want to see your personality. And it's it's considered a talking headshot, because what happens is you'll be wearing the same clothes that you're wearing from your headshot, and you're smiling in the headshot, and then all of a sudden it comes on and you're talking, and you say your name, and just give them a little something, 3 seconds of who you are, basically. Oh, my name is George, and I'm looking forward to working with you, something like that. But it's in your personality, you being authentically you. So once you have all 3 of those, you're guaranteed when they're looking for your type, you're gonna show up within the first 3 pages. But a lot of people don't do that because they don't have a reel. They have a headshot, or the headshot is terrible. Because if your headshot's terrible, they're not calling you in.
Oh, wow.
You know, if your reel is not. I was talking to a casting director like about 2 weeks ago, and we were talking, and she said, if someone sends me a reel, and the reel is something that it looks like they did it with their phone or something like that, or it's a self-tape that they use as their reel, she's like, I'm not even calling them in, because they're not a professional actor.
Wow.
You know, a professional actor is going to do the work. It's like, I'm going to go to Backstage, I'm going to figure out who I'm with, so I can then get some footage from my reel and cut my reel, make sure my reel pops. So when I send them my reel, like whenever I send a casting director, I email them and say, here's my headshot, here's my reel. They call me right back, or they send me an email right back. I got an audition for Queen of the South just like that. I send my headshot and my reel to the casting director, and she sent me an email back. Are you in New York? I was like, yeah. Can you be here tomorrow? Yes. Boom. Come in and do the audition. This before Queen of the South had actually even filmed. And I didn't even know who Alicia Braga was at the time. I was like, Alicia Braga. I went to look her up. I knew who she was by face, but I didn't know who she was by name. I mean, obviously I didn't get the role, but the thing is, the minute she saw my reel, she called me in. You know, and that's something that a lot of actors don't do, by not, because you got to make sure you take the time to make sure you got the right headshot. That you make sure that the headshot shows who you are authentically, and it depicts you, and then it makes you pop. And then you got to have the right reel, and the reel is like the stories that you want to tell. You have a reel that shows that. Because your reel, you want to have your reel about 90 seconds.
This is awesome.
I mean, I was talking to an actor not too long ago, and she's on several different shows, and we were talking about that, and she wants her reel to be like 4 or 5 minutes, because she's done so much work that she wants them to see everything. And
okay,
I was like,
she wants to condense it.
Yeah, well, she had it in 5 minutes, and I told her, I was like, look, my advice to you is keep it at 90 seconds at the most, because yes, you got all these different things, but take the ones that you did when you were earlier on in your career, get rid of those, because that's earlier work. Now you've grown as an actor, so you want to show your latest work that's going to show the best of you. You always want to have the best foot forward.
That's
And
great.
and so what I did, I do reels also. So I cut her reel and make sure that she had, a minute and a half. She had one that was a minute, one that's a minute and a half, and one that was like 5 minutes that she can send to whoever she's dealing with. Because in each one has their role. Because the minute you put that minute one on Actors Access. Because Actors Access is going to charge you $22.50 every time you upload a video.
Oh, wow.
So
Okay. This is good for
and
them
and
to know.
and that's if it's 1 minute long.
Mhm.
If it's over a minute, it's $44 or something like that. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, as an actor and you're just starting off in the industry, you have to know that you're going to have some money that you're going to have to play. Basically, what I mean by that is paying these different websites and things like that to have your stuff on there,
It's
making
an
sure you
investment.
exactly you're going to invest in yourself, and you have to do that. And when a lot of people say, when they say pay to play, they're thinking, oh yeah, I got to go pay to go to this casting director's workshop or something like that, and hoping that the casting director will cast me. And I'll tell you this, it's not about that. Yes, they need to know who you are, but there's so many ways for you to show them who you are. I
Look at
mean,
that.
so that's not, and you got to look at it. Every actor is thinking the same way if they're not thinking outside of the box. Another thing that I would say to have in this industry, when you come into this industry, is come in with outside the box thinking. Because when I first got into the industry, I remember I told this actress, like, we hang out for a while, we became friends, we met in class. And one day, and I was telling her, I was like, yeah. He's like, she's like, I said, I'm going to contact this casting director. She said, what do you mean, contact? I'm like, I'm going to contact her. I've met her. We shook hands, you know what I'm saying? So, and I'm going to send her an email with my actor's package, my headshot, resume, and reel. And she's like, you can't do that. And she got very aggressive with me. You can't do that. They don't want it. They don't want to talk to you. They don't want to meet you. You can't do. I'm like, so I looked at her. I said, well, correct me if I'm wrong. This, right? And I'm like, I got a business background. As far as I know, for business, is people need to talk to each other in order to do business.
But
In order for them to like you, know you, and do, they got to like you, know you, and to do the business with you. And if she doesn't have that relationship with me, she's not going to connect with me. I'm not coming in super creepy or anything like that, because I get where she's coming from. Like, because some actors come off thirsty, and if they're thirsty, you're going to repel anybody. But I'm not coming off thirsty. I'm saying, hey, here's my stuff. We've already met, so it's not like I'm just soliciting you blindly. I know who you are. We met once, briefly, but we met. And
that's so
so,
interesting. You have to pick and choose how you want to introduce yourself or reintroduce yourself, or
mhm,
just do something so that you can be memorable within that type of field. So this is really interesting. I'm learning a lot through this whole conversation.
thank
Yeah.
you. So I sent the email out, and that was the email to the casting director that was casting Queen of the South. So had I not done that, I wouldn't have had an audition for Queen of the South. And I'm looking at it, I'm walking into a network audition, and I don't have an agent. I don't have a manager. I'm my first year in the game. But the reason why is because every actor at that time, even some still think that now, is they think, I can't call a casting director. I can't email them. I can't have a relationship with them because they don't want that, because they're told that. And I'm like, and for me, I'm like, I'm a product. If I'm the actor, I'm the product, and my agent is there to sell me. The casting director is there is the middleman looking to buy the product.
Mhm.
So if I'm looking at that, then so I got to go to the casting director and say, hey, you know what? This is the product you're looking for.
That's right.
You know, so
You're the
I,
one
I
that wants the job.
exactly. So 9 times out of 10, they don't know what they're looking for until they see it. So why not contact them? And I'm not saying to blindly submit to them, because if you haven't built a relationship, I mean, you'll send them an email, they probably won't even open it, or if they open it, they won't even contact you back. They may not. So I don't recommend that you blindly submit to them, but I recommend that you build a relationship, because with any business that you do, relationship is the biggest thing that you have to have.
That's
So
great.
you
That's
want to build a relationship.
That's another great thing. You mentioned commitment, mindset, relationship, business relationships. There's a wealth of information here that a lot of people will be able to definitely put their best foot forward because of you giving them some really wonderful golden nuggets of information.
Thank you.
Definitely. I appreciate this.
Basically, what the advice that I would give any person that's coming in is, you want to get that first. And what I say is, the Bible say, know thyself. You have to know who you are first before you come into this game, because this game will challenge you mentally. You're going to get so many no's one thing that I got was I used to get take a risk as far as the craft goes. I'm like, I'm on stage. I'm like, I'm on stage. I'm taking a risk. I'm in my underwears on stage. I'm taking, I don't, I got 30 people looking at me in my underwears. So, I mean, that's not taking a risk. No, you're not.
What more do you want from me? Is this not good enough?
Yeah. So it was crazy. But the thing is I heard take a risk so many times that I had to go look in the dictionary to see what the hell's the definition of take a risk if I'm not taking a risk. Because the things that I'm doing, I feel like I'm taking a risk. And that's when my coach told me, you think you're committed, but you're not. And, I looked at her like, what are you, crazy? She's like, listen to me. You think you're committed, but you're not. I said, you've made, it's like, I'm not saying that you haven't made the sacrifice. You left your daughter, and you came here. You moved here. You spend a lot of money to be here. And you think that's commitment. That's not commitment. I'm like, what do you mean? It's like, I want you to stay committed. I want you to get committed. I want you to commit. And just like you're probably thinking right now, what the hell does it mean? That's how I was. I was thinking like, what does she mean? I mean, I left because she never told me what the commitment was.
It was within. Was it like something deep within?
And I'm like, yeah, that's the thing. It was like, I was like, that's a great coach. They're not giving you the fish. They're teaching you how to fish.
Yeah, for you to find out. Oh,
yeah.
That was deep. That was
and
so
I was like, wow. When I found it, I was like, wow, now I know. What the risk is, we talk about intimacy in acting, is in what she says, into me you see. And what that means is I need to let the people see me. And there's so many people that go on stage and they hide in plain sight.
Wow.
And that's what I was doing. I would get on stage, I could get butt naked, and be on stage naked, but I'm still hiding because you're not seeing who I am in my heart. So once I learned that, is taking a risk is doing what you're afraid to do. What, if you want to know how to take a risk, is when you're on that stage, that one thing that your mind tells you, and you say, oh, I'm not doing that, and you decide not to do that. That's what you need to do, because that's what's going to take you down the rabbit hole to actually, tell this story. And I was like,
I love it.
so now I knew what take a risk was, and commitment was that. Commitment is honoring who you are, open, and being able to expose yourself to people to see. Because what do? We normally have a facade that we put up, and this facade this is what we present to everyone, and we got a shield. We don't let people get in unless it's someone that gets really close to us, and even then we have might have a relationship with your significant other, and they don't really truly fully know you, because you have not been able to open it up completely and in yourself to let them in.
This is true. So
that's true commitment.
Yes.
Do that, open yourself fully, and expose that. Then it becomes.
I have to end it on that note.
No one can.
I love that. I have to end it there. Like, seriously, okay. It's perfect. Magnifique, however you say that word.